Hey everyone, I was going to wait until I got some new antennas to post an update on my review of the Eachine VR D2 goggles, but I got to thinking, I already have some different antennas. Why don't I, using my goggles and my diversity screen, go back and forth and kind of compare how one works to the other one? Because if you remember when I was flying around, it never switched over and used this patch antenna. It was just basically on the cloverleaf. So I could switch the same antennas from my screen to my goggles and then compare how they functioned, how they switched back and forth, and what the reception was between the two. So that's we're going to do in this video. So here we have the first comparison. I have the cloverleaf and the patch antenna on the Eachine goggles, and TBS Triumph and a rubber duck antenna on the Diversity LCD screen. You can clearly see that the goggles never really switch over to the patch antenna. There's always on the cloverleaf, and the while the Diversity LCD screen is kind of constantly switching back and forth between the cloverleaf and the rubber duck. I'm assuming that's because there's a lot of reflections and a lot of stuff like that going on, and the diversity screen is constantly trying to choose between the cloverleaf and the linear antenna. But like I said, the goggle is just stuck on the cloverleaf. It's not even thinking about using the patch antenna. And another thing you might be noticing is that the videos are now out of sync. It appears that the goggles, when you lose signal, it not only black screens, but it also kind of jumps ahead. It drops frames or does something kind of screwy there. And in this next clip, I'll do a comparison. All right, so during that last flight, I also recorded the actual screens. So I just had them sitting on a table right next to each other. And here we'll be able to see the recorded feed versus the actual feed. You can see over on the right hand side, the screen and the recording are pretty much mirroring each other exactly, but the goggle recording already has jumped a second or two ahead. You can see the goggle recording in the lower left hand corner. You can see the shed, and then the actual feed and the screen recording in the lower right hand corner is behind. Well, I shouldn't say behind. They're on time. For some reason, the goggle recording, whenever the feed seems to drop out and you get those black screens, it jumps ahead and almost kind of looks in fast motion sometimes. Whereas the screen recording is still right on. You can see as I come into land, the goggles are going to show me, the goggle recording is going to show me landing right now. 1,000, 2, 1,003, 1,004, 1,005, 1,006. So about 5-6 seconds ahead over that very short flight. Not really a big deal if you're just going to recording and not going to use the recording for much. But if you're trying to sync up later on, like I do a lot, that's kind of a big problem. All right, so to verify if it's the antennas or if it's the hardware of the goggles, I now have the cloverleaf and the patch antenna that came with the goggles on the screen itself. So you can see down in the lower right-hand corner, I kind of have a picture of the cloverleaf on the left, and that's on channel A, and the patch on the right, and that's on channel B. And just like with the goggles, it's locked on the cloverleaf. It never uses the patch antenna. Whereas the TBS Triumph and the rubber duck on the goggles now, you can see it's switching back and forth. So I'm pretty confident the goggle hardware is fine because it's switching just like the LCD hardware was. But there is definitely something either wrong or that patch antenna is just not very good. I know RC Model Reviews has taken apart a couple patch antennas from Amaway and other manufacturers, and they didn't seem to really be made correctly. So I'm just assuming that antenna is junk, and in a couple of days when I have my new antennas, I'll do a similar video to this and test them head to head. But I think it's going to be no contest. I think with better antennas, these goggles are going to be really nice. So there you have it. This antenna sucks. Doesn't work very well. Inspecting it, I mean, the solder looks okay. All the joints look fine. It doesn't look like it's damaged in any way. It just doesn't work. It's kind of a bummer because I think the goggles are pretty good. The screen inside is good. Other than that, going to black instead of showing static and that kind of time jump, the DVR function seems to work. Again, if you're a person that is just recording to view back later or to see where your model crashes in the goggles when you're out at the field, you're not going to care. If you're trying to sync up to external video or sync up to somebody else's video, it's going to be a big hassle. If you're flying tiny whoops around inside and you want to sync up two people's video, it's going to be really, really, really annoying with this DVR as it sits. Hopefully they'll release an update to fix that. It's always better to just record the static instead of trying to blank out the screen so you don't see static. Unfortunately, a lot of these are using commercial grade software and hardware, and they're just kind of forcing it into the FPV world. In those other worlds, when you get static, that means your connection's bad. In our world, when you get static, that just means your analog signal isn't as good as it could be, which happens all the time. So hopefully they'll release a patch to that. Hopefully you didn't buy these goggle sets expecting to use this antenna because it is worthless. I'll get some new antennas in, hook them up, test them, compare and contrast, prove again that this antenna is terrible, and that'll be coming up next.